Welcome back to the last day of TACoS, Art and Microbes. So today we're going to look at what you did yesterday about the Anna Atkins style documentation of your microbes. And we're going to look at a whole bunch of examples of people using cyanotypes and photograms and direct chemical processes in crazy ways, just to, see how far you can push it. You can do interesting stuff with these processes, well beyond what we're doing in this class, but I just wanted to show some examples of it. Then we're going to make what I sort of call a self-portrait. So you will work to create something about yourself particularly with the large pieces of cloth. When this is all done, we'll come back and we'll look at what we did, but also you're going to have some cloth left over, and so you can do whatever you want with it. Go wild, play with it, have your parents help you out, make your parents figure out with you what you should do, and have a good time. So first of all, yesterday, Squiggly Monster and TACoS axiom. So as you can see, Squiggly Monster, pretty hard, solid lines, sharp image. That was done when there was direct sunlight out there. It was a pretty good exposure, not much light coming through to the pink cloth, whereas the TACoS axiom was a much cloudier day, much softer image. So you can see the quality of the light, the quality of the sunlight has a lot to do with what your image is going to look like. The harder, more direct the sunlight is, the sharper your edges will be, the softer it is, especially as your objects get three-dimensional, the more rounded, soft gradient you will have. Interesting also, looking around the text on the one on the left, you can sort of see where the transparency even blocked a little bit of the light because the exposure was just not quite there yet. So just like with Anna Atkins, where you could see those edges around her writing, you can see that here as well. So, they look a little different. There are things you can take from them, things you can change. You can have a lot of fun. With the transparency material, you can just draw on it too, right? You can make a drawing. You could have the drawing interact with leaves. You can do whatever you want with it. It's a great way to add the hand and add the artistic touch into these much more scientific and rigorous and straight images with it this way. So anyway, experiments with cyanotypes and photograms. This sort of runs the gamut, starting with this guy named Eric Williams Carroll. I sort of love these because they are huge. He's taking this giant paper, but what he's actually taking is actual blueprint paper. So this is the stuff that would be used to make blueprints, huge, super lightweight, very cheap paper. And he goes out into the woods and he just lays it on the ground underneath the trees where the light comes through the trees and it blocks the sunlight. And that creates these very abstract pattern prints, essentially, from the sun coming through the trees and projecting onto them. So not a lot of control, but they're sort of fascinating. As opposed to a guy named David Ondrick. So he's not using cyanotypes, but he's using this idea of direct exposure onto paper. And he's a little crazy. This is not something that you should do at home. Do not do this at home. What Ondrick did was he would take a microwave oven into the darkroom and put photo paper inside the microwave oven and put CDs, those old-fashioned things that your parents might have, but they have metal in them. Inside the microwave and turn it on. And the CDs would catch on fire and the microwaves would break and bad things would happen, but he would get these crazy burn mark pattern images in it. Artists are a little weird sometimes. They do stuff that you should not do. They break the rules to get images in very strange and different ways. This is not a good idea to do what he did. He did it under very controlled situations where he had great fume hoods, and I think he went through like 6 microwaves while he was building this project. But little things to think about. Caleb Charland, also another thing that you should not do, but pushing to the edge of what you can do with these processes. He was taking regular photographic paper, could be cyanotype paper, could be silver gelatin paper, lots of different types of paper could be used. And he would put the paper into different types of bacteria. So this is where those microbes come in. Different types of microbes, bacteria and other things would eat the paper. Flesh-eating bacteria was one of them. And they would literally eat the paper and expel heat and expel other things. And through the eating of the paper, it would expose the paper. So purely chemical, no light, no image, nothing. but all we're seeing is basically the end result of a tiny little microbe chewing away at a photographic medium. Really weird. Christopher Colville, almost as destructive as this. Instead of microbes, Colville would go out into the prairie, into the desert. I think he lives down in Arizona. So he'd go out in the middle of the desert at night and he'd put out photographic paper and then he'd put gunpowder on the paper and he would blow it up. And the explosions, the heat, the light would expose the paper. So lots of ways you can make an imprint, make an image, a physical imprint, a chemical imprint, what have you, onto photographic paper. Finally, Megan Riepenhoff. She is back to the cyanotype world, and she is making these gigantic, gorgeous, gorgeous cyanotypes through not making an exposure, but rather dipping it into salt water and snow and various other things like that, and then never actually processing it. We were processing things by putting into water, and that makes it stable, and her images are unstable. So she gets all these incredible forms and textures by basically washing off the cyanotype solution before it's even been processed correctly, while it's exposing, and she gets these beautiful abstract things. So if you have an extra cloth, what you could do is put it out into direct sunlight, leave it out in the sun for a long time, both sides of it, and then spritz a little water onto it, put a little salt on it, do other things like that, rub it with your finger, the blue will come off onto your finger. But do not actually dip it into water. Don't put it into a bucket of water, and you will get sort of interesting, beautiful, weird, abstract textures on it. For her, it's because they're huge, because they have scale, that they get really wonderful and fascinating. And finally, the most complex of the photogram people is a woman named Leanne Langwell, who paints with light. So you can paint, you can use the sunlight, but for her, what she's doing is she's taking a flashlight of some sort in the darkroom and shaping and carving light onto a photographic paper before she processes it and making these beautiful, beautiful exposures. She's also cutting out stencils and using them. So lots of different things to create this idea of illusions of depth and of content and all these other sorts of things. So there's a lot of ways you can go, and I sort of want you to play around with that for this one. Be creative. You are going to, by default, we'll use our hands, and we'll make a self-portrait using our own hand. You could use your face, you could use your nose, you could use your foot, but you know, you're a little limited with scale and all that. And then you're going to combine it with things. So I'm doing one with Katla, and then we will look at it after we have done the video together.
So for the last image today, you should have saved your largest piece of colored paper for this. What we're going to do, as I've talked about already, is a self-portrait. Katla's decided to do her hand surrounded by a whole bunch of wonderful flowers she picked out in the front yard. So we're going to build it inside first, and then we'll walk outside. We're going to build the flowers underneath the plexi, then put the plexi down, and then put her hand on top of the plexi and try to sit as long as possible. Ideally, you want to do this in beautiful, bright sunshine. Unfortunately, it's gotten a little dark. We're going to do the best we can. We'll see how good an image we get. So let's start off with putting the cloth down. Okay. Put your one hand down. Cool. And now let's put some flowers around it. You might need some help for this, or you can just do it by yourself.
Put one right there.
Yep. Get one more up there. And I'll put one more down there.
And right here.
Okay.
Can you show that puppy in the background?
We have our puppy here chewing on some stuff. But right now we're going to get onto this. Okay. So let's pull this up. Squish this down. Okay, and carry the whole thing outside. Hello, puppy. No, you don't need to put your hand on it yet. Just carry it outside. Carry it outside. Okay. As you see, Katla, let's come over to the table here. So you can sit down. So place it up there. Move your hand. Take a seat. Okay, so we're going to do about a 20-minute exposure if we can. But normal exposure times are what you should go with. See you in a bit.
So that image that we did with Cutlet didn't work. She was a total trooper and sat perfectly still for about 25 minutes. It started raining on us. It got really dark. And when we processed it, there was nothing there. So I went back out and I did one myself really quickly. That's my hand. I did a double exposure, exposed my hand, took it away, and then put flowers down to fill the void of my hand. So I want you to play around with that. See what you can do. See how far you can push it. See what rules you can break. And can you make a portrait of yourself? Can you do something that in your mind shows us something about you? Make some images. Use up the last of the paper, or sorry, the cloth. Do whatever you want. Go wild. And send us images of everything that you've done. That is it for the art and microbes part of this class. I hope you had a great time. I enjoyed putting this together for you guys, and see you later.